So have you ever wondered why your vitamin D levels might be low and what it actually means, how to get it up, and what's the most effective way? Maybe you're taking supplements and they're just not coming up. Maybe you've been taking supplements for a long period of time and your vitamin D levels are still in the 50s. Well, in this video is for you because I want to explain to you how vitamin D is actually metabolized, what it means, where you get it from, and perhaps the reasons why you're not getting your vitamin D levels to a fantastically good level, even though you may be taking supplementation. If you're loving our videos, please like and share our videos. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on notifications. We'll keep you informed of the latest videos that we produce and help get your life back on track as we go through. All right, so let's talk about vitamin D. To start with, we need to get one thing very clear, and that vitamin D isn't actually a vitamin at all. So vitamins are basically mean vital amines. These are things that we have to get from our diet and we can't produce on our own. So there's a whole range of vitamins that have now lost their numbers, so to speak. So for instance, vitamin B7 you probably never hear of anymore. Vitamin B9 you never hear of anymore because we know that we create these from our own good gut bacteria and the like. Likewise with vitamin D, we now know that it's more of a pro-hormone as opposed to a vitamin, but the name's kind of still stuck over the years. So let's have a look through how we metabolize vitamin D. So the first thing we need to get very, very clear is that you cannot get vitamin D from the sun, okay? This is a big myth. You cannot produce a physical biochemical substance from light. Okay, we're not in the whole Star Trek era as yet. We can't beam me up, Scotty. You cannot produce a physical substance from light. However, sunlight is critical in producing vitamin D. So let me explain that. All right, so to start with, we have cholesterol in the skin. Okay, we have our natural cholesterol, a good cholesterol that we're talking about all the time. So we have cholesterol in the skin, and a very, very specific wavelength of light hits the skin and that cholesterol. And this is really important because you can only get that wavelength of light when the sun is above 45 degrees in the sky. Okay, so if you're an athlete and you're training early morning and in the evening, you're still never getting exposed to the right level of UV light. If you work a 9-to-5 job and then you go out straight away from work and you run outside, for the bulk of the year in Melbourne, you will not produce vitamin D. You need to be out on your lunch break, okay? So the easiest way to remember it is if you look down and your shadow is shorter or smaller than you are taller. If your shadow is shorter than you are producing vitamin D. If your shadow is longer than you are not producing vitamin D. And that's a very simple way to look at it. Because we can also then understand that, you know, we're at 37, 38 degrees south here in Melbourne, which basically means come July, August, the sun never gets to 45 degrees in the sky, so you can never produce vitamin D. So we need to understand to start with, it's a very specific wavelength of light that stimulates the conversion of cholesterol into vitamin D3, okay? This is really, really important that we need to understand that. From vitamin D3 or pre-vitamin D3, this gets then converted to the proper form of vitamin D3. Okay, so this is what your supplements generally contain, vitamin D3. That's this one here. This is generally what's in all those supplements that you take. This vitamin D3 then goes into the liver and undergoes a process known as hydroxylation. And that hydroxylation converts it from vitamin D3 to what we know as 25-OHD, which is this one here. And that 25-OHD is our natural stored form of vitamin D. Whilst it does have some biologically active effects, it's generally just our stored form that we have for when we need it. This is what your blood tests for, 25-OHD. Then when we actually need vitamin D to do its job, to actually fire up and do the things it's designed for, it undergoes another hydroxylation in the kidney to become 125 hydroxylated D, 125-OHD. This 125D is what we then use within the human body, and it gets used in a multiple number of areas. It gets used within the liver itself. It gets used within your immune system. In fact, vitamin D, or the 125D, is one of the most critical things in activating your initial immune response, our innate immune response, which is why it's been so important over the last couple of years with viruses and things like this that have been going around. Really critical for bone health as well. So this is what initiates the laying down of new bone and allowing construction of bone. It's also really important in brain health. Really critical in brain health, and we're still learning all the effects that 1,2,5-D has on the human brain. But we can see it has a multiple number of different effects. But it's this form which is the important form, not this form, not the stored form as such. And there's a very specific ratio that should always be maintained between those two to make sure that the receptors for 1,2,5-D are actually clean and healthy. So the big key thing that we tend to see with most people who are having problems with this process here is that the liver is critical in that process. If we don't have great liver function, then we don't convert to this stored form very well. And this is what we often see with people who are taking supplements and their values still are not going up. So you're taking 5, 6, 10,000 units of D3 of this form, and still their blood vitamin D levels or their stored D levels are down around the 40 or 30 mark. And the big problem with that really is the liver. And I know there's been some discussion about vitamin D from food. The form you get from food is what we call D2, which is what's coming through this area here. And it actually is converted to D3 quite poorly. So it's a very ineffective form of vitamin D. So this really is our primary pathway. And anything that blocks this form of UV light, that switches this off, is going to prevent you from producing vitamin D3. And that includes your full spectrum sunscreens as well. So we need to be very mindful with the use of those type of things and understand the balance between sun exposure being good for us, but sunburn not being good for us. It's a very fine line with that. The other thing that we understand about this as well is that the patients that we see here over the years who are not responding to their vitamin D supplements very effectively, if we give them this form, okay, the 25 hydroxylated D, the 25D form of vitamin D as a supplement rather than D3, their values skyrocket very quickly. That's one thing that we've often seen. In fact, sometimes we actually need to be very careful how much we give them because their values can actually get too high. Sometimes even within 6 to 8 weeks we can see that. So this is a really interesting thing because it really does show just how poor liver function is in some people. All right, so some key points to take away from this. Remember, we don't get vitamin D from the sun. It's just a catalyst that activates it. 45 degrees is the target. If the sun is above 45 degrees, that's the time to get out. Okay, that's when you want to get your sun exposure, not before or after. Calcifidiol, which is this form of vitamin D, calcifidiol, which you can get in supplement form now, is often a better form of supplement than D3 for many people. The other thing with it as well is D3 is fat soluble. Vitamin A, D, E, and K are fat soluble vitamins, where the calcifidiol form of vitamin D is water soluble, so it tends to absorb better as well. We don't need to be too concerned in that regard with it. And the other big thing that we need to take away from this is the liver is the key to good vitamin D health. Okay, we really need to have a good function liver. And you've probably had liver enzyme tests done, they've come back all clear. Remember, those enzymes are really looking for cellular damage, they're not looking for liver function. It's a very different type of testing process. The liver has more than 3,000 functions, so just by looking at a couple of enzymes is not going to give you the whole breakdown of how the liver's working. It's just looking for pathology. We need to understand the way that tests work and what they do. Anyway guys, that's a very brief and quick introduction to vitamin D and how it influences you. If you do have any questions in any way, shape or form, you want to know what normal levels are or anything like that, please just post them up below or send me a PM and I'm happy to answer that for you in any way, shape or form. You can also reach me on email at trevorchitcootie@spinewise.com.au if you feel that's more comfortable for you. But otherwise, hope you've gotten something out of this. Hope you understand that middle of the day is a time to get out, especially at this time of the year in winter. And we need to understand if your shadow is shorter than you, that's when you're getting vitamin D, not at any other times of the day. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next vid. Bye for now.